My name is Ibrahim El-Yafi, and thank you for joining me this afternoon to talk about a somewhat an interesting topic to me in my life as an HR practitioner. I found time and time again that HR skills are very important in our life in order to do business. But then there are more than just HR skills we have to do and we have to apply in our daily business. So this presentation, which will probably take us about 30 minutes to cover the slides that I have for you, and then we'll open, I think, the discussion for the next 30 minutes to talk about maybe your questions, your feedback, your comments. And basically what this concept or this presentation is revolving about is the requirement of using other skills that we have, maybe soft skills, you may call them human skills, you call them whatever you may, but they're all the same. But it's all these additional skills that we have to have as HR professionals in order for us to do our job in a professional manner. Very good. Well, let's go through this. Can I get some confirmations from maybe in the typing from some people that you all are hearing me, clearly? Good, excellent. All right. Thank you, Sharif. Thank you very much. Thanks, Millicent. Thank you, Mahmoud. Very excellent. Excellent. Everybody is hearing correctly, and thank you so much for the confirmation. All right. Let's go on. So more than HR skills. So what do you mean by HR skills? What do you mean by more than HR skills? The HR skills, of course, we're referring to the technical skills that we all use, such as recruitment and selection, training and development, performance management. What else do we have? Compensation and benefits. The list goes on, and we all spend a lot of time equipping ourselves and reading and researching and probably attending training programs to improve ourselves into these skills. So going further now from that and talking about what are some of the other skills that we require in order for us to do a good job. So before I start, I'd like to give you a quick brief about myself. Qualification-wise, I'm a graduate of the US. I graduated holding a bachelor's degree in something called engineering management. I don't know if some of you have heard it, but the closest term that probably is famous in the world of business is industrial engineering. It's kind of parallel to it. And then I went and I did an MBA. From then, I started my career as a training manager with Coca-Cola International, and I started moving from one organization to another and in different countries until I basically accumulated about 5 years of experience in the world of human resources. So today I'm working with Meirc as a consultant. I'm a partner with them. So I'm a trainer, I'm a consultant. And the recent thing that I added to my technical skills in this world is I've trained also to become a coach. So I'm also an executive and a life coach at the same time. With Meirc, my areas of expertise mainly are in human resources and training. The majority of the courses I champion are in that field. However, if you work in the human resources field, like a lot of you end up having to work with leadership, cultural change, self-development, and interpersonal skills. So that's another area I support the organization in. All right. So that was a brief about me and who I am. I want to start with this interesting slide. And I'm asking the question in this slide, do you feel like this sometimes? Do you feel like an HR professional, that you're an architect, you're a consultant, you're a manager, you're a director, you are a counselor? How many of you feel like this? Give me some confirmations as working as HR professionals. Anybody? Okay, no one is typing. either I'm not making sense. Okay, we got some people typing now. Excellent. Yes, consultant. Yes. Well, what I mean by question is, thank you, Eli, for that question. What I mean by question is, when you are working as an HR professional, I mean, you're a training and development manager, you're an HR business partner, you're I don't know, compensation and benefit expert. But delivering those HR solutions, do you feel sometimes that you're counseling people, you're teaching them about customer service, you're teaching them about leadership skills? Sometimes they come and confide in you and say, I have this problem, can you help me out? What do you think I should do? So you become a counselor. Yes, I think this is something that comes with the territory that we manage in our work as human resources professionals. There you go. So okay, I'm glad that everybody agrees, because it was something that I always felt as an HR professional. I have a poll for you, and the question of the poll is, what percentage of the time do you use skills outside of human resources, as communication skills, management skills, leadership skills? So I'm going to go to the survey here and ask you, from the 4 options that you have, between 0 to 25% of the time, 26 to 2% of the time, so on and so forth. So the time that you don't use the HR skills and you are using your non-HR skills. So I'll give you about 30 seconds. Let's see. Okay. Very nice. So a lot of the people so far are in the same category, which is about 26 to 50% of the time. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, so I'm going to end the voting, and let me share the results with you. Okay, everybody sees it? Excellent. So look at this. The majority of you feel that you're spending more than 25% of your time and up to 50% of your time using non-HR skills. And to be honest with you, I kind of agree. In fact, I mean, my personal vote would have been for 51 to 75%. So going back to the presentation, let me start with you with a slide from Becker, Huslid, and Eldridge findings. They did a research back in 2002 about the competencies that HR professionals require, and this is what they found. They are, if you list 6 of them, and the first one is knowledge of the business. So your understanding of the financial, strategic, technological, and organizational capabilities of your organization. Why is there a sound? That's okay. Okay, no problem. Okay. Are you okay there, Osama? Did you get rid of that sound? Or are you asking why is there no sound? Okay. Okay. Maybe Osama having a problem with his own system. All right. Sorry about that, but these things do happen in these webinars, so we have to make sure that it's okay. Right. So going back, so yeah, I mean, look at this. I mean, the thing about the knowledge of the business, and I agree with that totally. How can you possibly, being a support function, being a consultant to your organization, design any HR solution if you don't understand the business very well? Right? I mean, think about a good customer service or good a salesperson when you go and buy something. If they don't really get to know you as a client, how in the world can they sell you something you actually need? Then they look at the delivery of the HR practice. So we come up with the solutions and the ability of us to deliver the HR practice. So that's a pure, if you notice, technical aspect of what we do. Then they go to competency number 3, which is management of change. I mean, it's definitely been my experience, and I think you may agree too, that change is inevitable. In fact, I think there's a wise saying that the only constant in life is change itself. So guess what? We need to be the managers of change. In fact, I think we are a lot of the times, the go-to source in helping people do this. So look at this: diagnosing problems, building relationships, setting a vision, solving problem, implementing goals. So even within the definition of these competencies, they are also given us sub-competencies that we should. Management of culture. Again, keeper of the culture, the ones who are the custodians, if you will, of the organizational use. And then on top of this, I like that one: personal credibility. right? Living the values, being an example to follow, having to build on trust and having a point of view, showing everybody that we can be trusted, we are their reference point. And the last one that you see there is strategic human resources performance management. Now that takes the other technical aspect of what we do and the strategic aspect of our function. So you notice 2 out of 6 main competencies are the only technical competence according to these guys, while the majority of the other the other focus should be on the areas outside of human resources. In a way, what they are is that the executive, the HRM, human resource manager executive, is a human resource expert, is a management expert, is an industry expert, is a platform speaker, organizational development consultant, strategic planner, futurist, and business partner. So, I think what you can call us the jokers in the organization, or the go-to reference for a lot of information. I have a feeling that we skipped some slides. Yes, sorry about that. I have another quiz for you that I'd like to ask you. All right. Have you all heard of the Society of Human Resource Management, better known as SHRM or SHRM? They as well listed a nice competencies for the HR professionals. Do you by any chance know how many of them are actually technical HR competencies? By the way, the total is 9. I just want to ask you whether you think it's 1, 3, 5, or 7. So let me do the survey. Would you mind participating in that survey and answering for me? So also about 30 seconds. And if you don't know, just take a guess. All right, I'm getting some answers in the chat as well. Would you, I don't know, Nawal and Rana, get a chance to vote? But thank you for sharing it on the chat as well. So Nawal is saying 3, Rana is saying 1. Okay. All right, one more person on the 1. I think almost everybody kind of voted in. All right, let's see. Ending the vote and sharing the results. All right, so let's see, 15% of you think it's 1, 20% 3 HR competencies, 5 of you, or 25% of you think it's 5, and only 5% think 7. All right, so let's see. Let me share with you what SHRM thinks. All right, here we go. HR technical expertise and practice, so that's 1. Relationship management, no. Consultation, no. Ethical practice, no. Critical evaluation, no. Business acumen, no. Communication, no. Global cultural effectiveness, and final leadership and navigation. So basically, out of 9 competencies, guess what? It's only 1. So bravo to the ones who actually scored or voted for 1. It tells a story, doesn't it? I mean, even the experts in the field are telling us we need to develop competencies outside of the HR technical expertise and practice. I'll tell you my view, my personal experience in this. I've actually worked as an HR practitioner for about 18 years, and for the last 7 years, I've joined as a consultant with Meirc. Guess what? I mean, I agree totally. To me, if you ask me what is the number 1 competency that you used, it wouldn't be any of my HR expertise. It was emotional intelligence. I needed to be sort of the liaison all the time between the management and the employees, between the requirements of the organization and the requirements of the employees. In fact, I mean, that's what we do. We're like a person who's walking on the hanging rope and balancing the needs of the organization or the objectives of the organization versus the requirements and the needs of the individual employees. And guess what? If you are not 100% emotionally intelligent, doing this is not going to happen. Emotional intelligence for me kind of led into the world of communication and improving my communication with everybody. And then when I wanted to deliver the services, managers were not the easiest customers in the world. I mean, usually they are the toughest customers that we have to deal with, and the most demanding and the most challenging. Then you've got the employees and what their needs and their complaints and their requirements. So you gotta address all of those. So customer service also came into play. And because of all of and even in the past 7 years of training and dealing with participants for various organizations, all the questions that came across, all the comments that came across from various individuals in the human resources function, and the questions, the clarifications that I got throughout those years were about how do I manage the relationship with a manager? How do I convince managers to actually fill the performance appraisal forms? How do I get them to participate effectively in the recruitment and selection of their employees? How do I get them to not back up on their words, and having to defend myself in front of the management about steps that we've taken. So all of those, if you notice, none of them is really talking about the actual technical aspect of human resources, but more about the relationship and the relationship management with our customers, who are basically I call the managers our VIP customers, like in the banks, while our employees are our normal customers. The reason, of course, I call the managers of the VIP customers is because, well, they're the ones who make decisions. They are the ones who reach us and talk to us about what business requirement they have from the human resource, whether it's recruiting people, training people, helping in the IDPs, the nationalization, so on and so forth. But the ones who are the end users or the end beneficiaries of these services are naturally the employees, and that's why I call these the customers, or the normal customers. So, in my view, to be honest with you, I see two types of categories that I think every HR professional should look into. What I call the interpersonal skills, and if you notice this, it revolves around 3 or 4, about 5 competencies there. Number 1 for me is communication, highlighted in that circle. Follow, the communication in general, and more specifically, business and report writing. And the reason that is very important in my point of view is our function as a human resource function is a legal function. The reason I say this, we are responsible for the human resource, and the human resource relation, the employee's relation to any organization is defined by the contract. What is the contract? It's a legal document. So everything that we do has legal implications. And the one area that I'm sure we all agree with, that we need to always pay attention to, are we being legally compliant with the labor law or whatever law that applies to your organization? The various rules and the regulations that come from the government where our organization is operating. So in order for me to actually act in a legal manner, guess what? I need to be a pretty good writer. I need to know how to document. Conflict resolution, wow. To me, it goes without saying. Customer service, we just talked about that. Coaching and counseling, majority of my time, especially when you become the leader of the HR function. Coaching and counseling people is definitely something that you do day in and day out. And mainly, guess what? To your VIP customers, and in this case, of course, the managers. Now, the other category that I see there is emotional intelligence, and you heard me speak earlier about the importance of emotional intelligence. In fact, I think emotional intelligence, which is a kind of a mature function, or excuse me, competency to develop, but it's in the heart of all that we do. And I think it kind of fuels, if you will, anything related to communication. So whether we're talking about the communication in general and under the interpersonal skills or the business writing, or even competency number 2 under professional skills, which is public speeches and presentations. Not to mention persuasion and influencing. That's that again, time and time again, we're pushing and and trying to influence and persuade our employees and managers with the regulations, with the policies, with the importance of doing the performance appraisal and how it actually supports them and helps them in achieving their goals. Now, I highlight the very last, then there's creative problem solving and decision making, but I highlight the very last one, which is understanding accounting and finance. If you take a survey, I'm not going to take a survey with you because I kind of know this one, but I hope you agree. The large majority, I'm not going to say everybody, but the large majority of people who choose human resources as a career path, usually because they're running away from math. I mean, I hear this time and time again in our courses telling me the reason I love human resources, or I work in human resources because I'm not very good in math. But surprisingly, in this day and age, every management team, every top management team is pushing the human resources function to know more about numbers and report things in numbers. Suddenly we're hearing about those KPIs related to human resources, training and development. I just finished a course on training management skills. And in that, we talk about measuring the training function. And the top one is return on investment. Return on investment is actually a financial term, but we've taken that from them and tried to implement it by understanding the whole idea of cost and benefit and comparing the two together to measure a return on the investment that the organization does on its employees. The same applies whether you're talking recruitment and selection, where you're talking performance. All of our activities, we need to quantify them. Granted, it's not the easiest thing in the world because we are dealing with human resources. And yes, and level 5 is hard, that isolation of impact. I agree with you 100%. It's extremely challenging. And yet, that's Eli, by the way, comment that came from Eli, and thank you for that, Eli. And you're absolutely correct. And as far as I know, there's only about 5% of organizations worldwide that go for the ROI in measuring the impact. But what I'm saying is, when I guess we present our solutions, we need to quantify what we do. We need to speak the same language that our organization top management speak. And just to prove the point to you, imagine if you had a certain capital and wanted to own your own business and you open your own business. What is the language you'll be speaking all the time? Guess what? It's numbers, because you invested money and you wanted money in return. So it's only fair that when we play the role of support for our management, that we do the same and speak the language that they do. So I'm going to highlight three areas in my discussion. Out of all of those competencies, I want to talk about emotional intelligence, because I think by now you realize how passionate I am about emotional intelligence. And telling you about the three main areas in emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, if you've read the book, if you've had, if attended courses about it before, you probably know that there are four main clusters in there. And the first one is self-awareness. Now, self-awareness, of course, leads to self-management, and self-awareness leads to social understanding, and the self-management and the social understanding lead to management of relationship. But the one that I think that is absolutely important to focus on, and in my mind, it'll automatically improve the rest of these emotional intelligence clusters, is the very first one, that self-awareness. Understanding your own emotions, recognizing how events affect your emotions and how they, when do you get angry, when are you happy, when are you sad, what are the triggers you have. So understanding the movements of your emotions is very important, and therefore your ability to accurately assess yourself. The more you understand yourself, the more you build your self-confidence, because you start managing yourself well. The interesting thing about self-awareness, the more you build of that, the more you become aware of who you are and how your emotions are affected, there's a natural ability that builds within you to understand others. And therefore, you become able to apply empathy. Yeah? And there's nothing more important in my mind than applying empathy, either in communicating with people or in dealing with people. So, in conflicts and trying to persuade others, you need to see matters from their perspective, and that's empathy, of course, putting yourself in the shoes of the other. But that only happens, that only builds when you build that particular competence, that self-awareness. And there's a lot of material out there that I encourage you to read about or attend a course about it. And definitely emotional intelligence is very important. The next one is communication. So how can we better our communication? Well, a skill that I talked about, which is part of emotional intelligence, empathy, right? Put yourself always in the other person's shoes. Listen more than you speak. You know that famous saying that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen double than what we speak. The old Arabic saying that buy more than you sell, and referring to words, obviously. So understanding the person comes from listening to that person. Point number 2, acknowledging others' feelings. When somebody comes and tells you, I'm angry about this because this and this happened, or I am mad about that person because this and this happened, I'm frustrated, I'm happy. On the negative side, the first thing people want to hear from you is acknowledging their feelings. Not that you agree with them, but at least you tell them you have the right to your emotions, right? So at the moment when you're angry, and we've all been there. We've been angry, and we probably knew we were wrong about being angry, but we just couldn't go back. We just needed somebody to say, yes, it's okay to be angry. It's okay. You have the right to be angry. So I understand why you feel the way that you do. And therefore, do not pass judgments on people. A lot of the times we sit in the seat of human resources, and we kind of play the preacher of the house. No, it's more about understanding and empathy, and providing the solution, maybe the suggestion that will work. Hopefully, whatever solution and suggestion that come out of this will support the individual on an emotional, psychological level, but at the same time serves the requirements of the organization. And at the end of the day, we are paid by the organization, so we're supposed to kind of look after its needs. But again, going back to that rope example, it's about creating that balance between the employees and the needs of the organization. All right, so we've covered rather quickly, a little bit about emotional intelligence, a little bit about empathy and how it impacts our ability to talk to deal with people. And the other one that we need to improve is listening. I'm a Middle Easterner, and I admit to it. We are horrible listeners. We like to share more than we like to receive, and we need to learn to actually reverse. We need to stop talking for a change. We need to give the other party a chance to explain their point of view. But what about if I'm busy? You know what? Maybe if you are busy, investing the time in listening to the other person. So thank you, Nasreen. In investing the time in listening to the other person kind of saves a lot of time later on of making the wrong decision based on the wrong information that we got from the other person. So I highly encourage everyone to just take a deep breath. I mean, if somebody comes to you in the middle of something, and you're busy, or you're pressured, and that person needs to share something important with you from their perspective, just take a deep breath, calm down, become self-aware of your own emotions, start playing with your thoughts to calm yourself down, and listen to that person and collect the information. Who knows? He might have important piece of information that relates to the issue at hand. Or if you're absolutely busy, just listen a little bit, interrupt in a polite manner, tell the person to come back to them, but do come back to them and do listen to them. So going back to the listening list, and listen for the purpose of understanding and not contradict. We're not in a, one of the things that a lot of the times we do in the Middle East is that we need to prove ourselves that we're always right. And who needs that? We don't get any money, I think, for proving that we are we are right. We just think that we do. So it's about understanding, not contradicting them. Again, empathize, put yourself in their shoes. Make sure that you paraphrase and summarize what they say. Watch the body language. There's a lot to be said from the body language than actually be from the words being said. Look at that very last one, my favorite. Remind yourself to be patient in listening to the other person. All right. The last one that I want to share with you, and I'm coming close to the end of my talks, and then we'll open the floor for you to send in your comments, is understanding a little bit about accounting and finance. Accounting and finance is the world on its own. But what I intended to do in these few minutes that I have with you in this webinar is just to give you a quick idea about what's the difference between accounting and what is the and finance. Accounting, as you see on this slide, is about recording and reporting. What the accountants, this is what they do, right? They just take the data, anything related to what came in, what went out, in expenses, and they maintain records, detailed records, and they usually do it either according to the international financial reporting standards or the generally accepted accounting principles, depending what they do. It's something in their world, right? Like we have SHREM and we have our own rules and regulations. They have their own. Now, the next thing that what these guys do, they're supposed to produce reports. And usually these reports come in the shape of financial statements. You may have heard of them. The income statement, equity statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow. The famous ones, of course, are the income statement and the balance sheet. But you may hear cash flow probably from your colleagues. So they tend to be very focused people, sometimes introverted. They just focus on the numbers, and you kind of don't understand what they're doing. So this is what I'm intending to do here, is to give you a bit of empathy to what they do. Can you imagine if you actually spend your entire day just recording and then report financial statements on that Excel sheet? To be honest with you, no thank you. But understanding them is definitely important. The finance, on the other hand, is taking that data they get from the accounting, analyzing it, and making decisions, right? So they analyze the financial statements, the income statement, the balance sheet, so on and so forth. They look at the industry, they look at the economics, and they look at it from purely a number focus. And then they come up with recommendations. So they come up with decision 1, decision 2, decision. And naturally, this basically come in coordination with the top management. The final slide that I have on this, and I'm not going to bore you any further with this, is the need for you to understand what are the main accounts in the financial statements. The income statement is basically a list. It lists your revenues, as you see point number 3 if you count from the top to the left, and you take away the expenses, the one right on top of it. The difference is your net income. Hopefully it's a plus, not a minus. So obviously the management will look, would keep a close look on this to make sure that the revenues is higher than their expenses. Now the other one, the balance sheet, that one is a bit on the confusing side. That one actually tells you about where the company stands in general in what they own and what they owe to other organizations, and therefore what is our ownership, how much do we have, and that's the balance sheet. So they look at the assets, and the assets are, of course, like buildings, equipment, things like this. Then they look at the liabilities and say, how much do we owe? Okay, they have things called accounts receivable, they have loans, they have debts, and then they say, okay, so what's the difference between how much we own versus how much we owe? And that gives them what they call the owner's equity, final one, and it tells them where they are. The capital usually of the organization is placed under equity. This may have sounded boring for you. I may realize to some of you, but I think it's very important to befriend our colleagues in finance and understand their language, because I'd like for every HR professional to be able to report what they do in numbers and in dollar signs. And the best person, you're not a professional in accounting. The best person who can help you is definitely your colleagues in finance. Well, it's 33 minutes into the webinar, and I don't want to take any further time. So I like to thank you for joining me, and I hope this brief introduction about the extra skills and the extra competencies that we have to have in HR professional, maybe got you an idea about it. And I do encourage you, read about it more, and learn about it more. Come join us in one of our courses, like the Interpersonal Skills or the Professional Skills. Watch webinars, watch videos. You're very welcome, Eli. Thank you for making that comment. So at this point in time, what I'd like to do is to open maybe the floor for the next maybe 25 minutes for any discussion or questions that you may want to share with me. You're very welcome, Millicent. Any questions, any comments? Absolutely. Eli mentions finance for finance managers, and you are absolutely correct. That will be a brilliant start, and to get to understand that field. Yes, Sharif, you said you have one question. Abdul Karim, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. May I have the question, Sharif? Why HR still controlled from the C-suite? Because I think top management like to be in control of everything. You're welcome, Abu Bakr, sorry. The truth of the matter is management styles are different from one organization to the other. Certain organizations where I worked, I had some free hand by the management. In fact, I had authority to make payments. Other organization, everything had to go through the boss. My view on this is I cannot control the others. I can only control myself. I'm a firm believer, if you've read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People for Stephen Covey, in the concept where he describes the circle of influence and circle of concern. And he says each and every one of us is, we are in the middle. I'll mention that in a minute. Yeah, okay. So we have our circle of influence and our circle of concern. We can suggest, we can influence, we can use these, influencing skills to kind of, encourage the management to trust us more. And maybe by showing them that we know more about this and we're collaborating with them, we can basically, cooperate with them on the financial aspect. I mean, it's, put yourself in their shoes. And again, let's practice some empathy with the top management. Would you not be concerned about every cent that goes in and goes out? Well, the answer is yes. And if you have your doubts about the ability of the HR people and their financial abilities, you probably raise question marks. I think it's up to us to kind of earn the trust of the management on showing them that yes, we are trustworthy when it comes to this. But thank you for that beautiful question. Omar Franklin is asking, how helpful is the accounting bit to the HR function? Good afternoon to you too. I think by nature, I think, like I said, my experience has been with the accounting and finance, and I hope nobody's hearing me from the accounting and finance. They are kind of introverted. They're a bit like engineers in the way they think, very systematic, 1 + 1 = 2. And we have always encouraged myself and other people to kind of reach out to them and show them that we are interested in what they do, and asking them to share with us more on what is finance and what is accounting. It's interesting when you ask any person about what they do, they see the interest in your eyes, they can't help but start sharing. So building that rapport, building that relationship with them, if we take the first step towards building that relationship, slowly but surely, they hopefully will become closer to us and provide that support. Nawal, you're very welcome. Thank you, Sharif. You agree? He said, is the HR manager turnover high itself? You're right. It is high. Naturally, the HR function, again, being nationalized a lot, it's putting a lot of pressures on the function to find the national employee who has the good experience. So these individuals in particular are high in demand, and that's why I think you saw a lot of turnover in that particular function. The other thing is, I think the point that was raised earlier by Sharif, about the control and maybe the lack of trust of management in human resources, it kind of puts pressure on us in being able to deliver. And people do get, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, we are HR professionals, we are consultants of the organization when it comes to dealing with people, but we're humans at the same time. So the pressures play their role with the HR professionals as well, and you see that turnover. Very good. All right. Any other points? Any other questions? Okay. Ms. Moza, I think, is typing something. Okay. Wow, you're scaring me there, Moza. It looks like a very long question. Oh, thank you so much. I thought there was a question. So, So pleased that you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Salam, as well. You are all very welcome. I'd like to thank you especially for joining me today. It's such a pleasure. Okay. You are all very welcome. Very well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it very much. I will. I definitely. Oh, yes, I'd love to. Thanks, Ili. I'll definitely make it a point to come and visit you sometime. Great. Thank you very much, everybody. If great, if there are no other questions, I guess I'll conclude this webinar. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found it beneficial, and I wish you all the best and all the success. Please keep in touch with us. Look forward to talking to you again. Bye.
Meirc.com